Welcome to the Autism Advocate Podcast. I'm your host, Laura Hales. If you're looking for tips on how to advocate for and understand your autistic child in a more meaningful way, you've come to the right place, and we're so happy to have you join us. And welcome to season 1 finale, episode 20. Can you believe it's episode 20? I'm sorry for the last week or so. Things have been kind of off as far as videos Monday, Wednesday, Friday. My family has been out with a horrific flu. Yay! It's not been fun. As you can hear, I don't sound my best. I don't feel my best. I hopefully don't sniff too much. I will try not to, but I'm sure as I'm talking a lot, that might be the case. So I beg your pardon for myself during this one. This last deep dive of season 1 that I wanted to do was about toxic positivity within parenting autistic children. So again, when you look at things contextually, historically, there are reasons for everything, which is understandable, and it's very enlightening when you consider the reasons why for where we're at in society. So originally, autism was thought to be a sort of abilities in life, as far as your potential, what you could do, where you could go, who you could be. It has since become a sort of indicator of what would be most effective as far as parenting practices, therapies, and such, to understanding how your child's brain functions. So more likely for success, more likely, it's just access to more information now is what the diagnosis means. And that doesn't mean that there aren't more understandable struggles ahead, more unknowns, more things that we don't have answers to as parents. But it's not the social death sentence that it used to be, which is great, right? We are recognizing the potential of each individual. Now, here's where the pendulum did a sort of a complete swing. So we went from it being this sort of social and life-wise death sentence from pediatricians, behavioralists, etc., that said, okay, they'll never talk, they'll never achieve these milestones, they'll never have functional communication, you need to put them in a home. We have swung from that all the way to autism is a superpower. Now here's where I see a lot of very well-meaning parents in the community making potentially some mistakes. Now, I'm not here to criticize anyone's parenting. Being a parent myself, I am nowhere near in a position to criticize parenting. I am here to share, in hindsight, what I wish I had known myself. I have 2 autistic sons. One is 12 and one is 6, as you probably know by now. And there have just been a lot of things that I have learned and I have seen and I have experienced and thought a lot about. Is kind of the gist of everything that we have talked about. I've thought a lot about things. So something that led to the publication of my children's illustrated books. Here's Alex and the drummer. Ta-da! Here's some ASMR for you. Those are my fingertips on the book. Nice. If you hate ASMR, so sorry, apologize. The reason I started writing children's illustrated books about true stories about our life and how autism affects my son and affects my life is that we did not have very good representation out in children's literature. If there were books that described children like my son, it was infantilizing his behavior. Infantilizing means that they treat you like a child, like an infant. So it includes talking like this. It includes assuming that the person has below average intelligence. Beyond that, I noticed that every children's illustrated a book that was about being autistic. That's the entire premise of the book, is being autistic. And for us, while that is an absolutely essential part of who my kids are, it's also just part of how they experience life and what that looks like in our family. Our family doesn't wake up thinking, well, we're autistic, so let's be autistic today. It's we go about doing everyday things. I attend church. We go to the grocery store. We go to school. We have all these life experiences that autism is very much present for in my sons. So it's more experiencing typical life scenarios while being autistic, rather than this is a whole book about how I am autistic. Does that make sense? And so I wanted people to be able to relate to and think of autism as being something that's relatable, as something that says, you know, I have felt stressed in a grocery store before or overwhelmed by the sounds and the lights. I have seen children have meltdowns in grocery stores before. My second book takes place in a grocery store. I have felt the way, for example, the drummer does or Alex does in this story. And before you know it, you are relating to autistic experiences through your own lens, of course, and not with the perspective of that means I know what it's like to be autistic, but that you are saying, I can be more compassionate and empathetic when I am out in public and I observe somebody that is struggling. I can think to myself, I can relate to that. I know how that feels, and people are more likely to behave in a different way. Okay, that being said, some of the other books that I found were either, this is who I am and I'm autistic. And there was that category. And then the other category was this glorification of being autistic, that autism is a superpower, that it's purely positive, that, maybe the book will mention one or two lines about sometimes there are struggles, and that's okay, but I don't feel that that's truthful or genuine. That's just my take. And every individual expresses, lives life as being autistic differently, right? So the experience that we have, that I have observed in my children and in my life, is perhaps that person really genuinely feels that autism is their superpower. If that is the case, more power to them. I struggle to find that genuine. When And here's where I struggle. When you teach your child, your autistic child, that autism is a purely positive experience, where do they have space for their struggles, for their difficult feelings, for things that relate to them being autistic that are not pleasant? When they struggle with functional communication, with verbalizing their needs, with toileting experiences, with feeding experiences, with functional life habits, when so many things are so challenging, how is that genuine of an expression? I'm not sure. To me, it is not. Now, again, the pendulum has swung, so I do appreciate that it is swinging away from this sort of life sentence to say you will never be successful, you will need to go live in a home. But again, to have it swing the complete opposite direction of this is a superpower and anyone can do and be anything they wish to be. Now, that may sound wonderful. I don't know that I would say realist, because I think that comes with a lot of negativity. I think the honest truth is that we can't all be anything that we want to be. For example, if you are somebody who is visually impaired, you cannot qualify to be an astronaut. Um, you just can't. It's not safe for you. It's not safe for the rest of your crew. There are certain qualifications for things. Now, maybe we can make things accessible in the future. Can you imagine that level of accessibility? That would be incredible. Now, do I think we should be telling our autistic kids, no, you can't be this and you can't be that? No, but I do think having unreasonable expectations for any child can be very damaging and a real struggle to feel like you are constantly failing people's expectations, or, you know, in spite of being quadriplegic, that people are saying, but you can do anything and be anything you want to be. Um, it's just it's just not true. It's just not true. Now there are many things that autistic individuals or people with other disabilities can do that are incredible. Things where they have absolutely blown past expectations. Very skilled artists, for example, they put the paintbrush in their teeth and paint that way. A lot of times, paraplegics will use their feet and toes to do a lot of things. I know there's a person on TikTok who has a limb difference. They don't have any of their arms or legs. And I don't happen to know what gender they identify with. So I will say they only because I don't know. That they are fantastic at makeup. And what I noticed is that the brush gets wedged between their shoulder and the table, and then they move their face to apply the makeup themselves. Now, those are things that we wouldn't expect somebody with their limb difference to be able to do. And I think those are fantastic examples of breaking those barriers and saying, hey, you can't limit me. I'm going to choose to do this. And I think those are more safe expectations that we should support. We should be open. We should say, you know, I will be here to try to facilitate this as much as possible. I'm your biggest fan. But when we put the expectation of you can be anything onto every child and children with disabilities, I think it when we inevitably struggle, hit a wall, hit okay, but that's something that functionally I my body is incapable of doing, or my brain is incapable of processing things that way. That there's now more failure and shame and what's wrong with me attached to those experiences. Now, I think failure is fantastic. I think failure is part of the lived human experience. I think it builds a resiliency in us. I think it's how we learn to do anything. And I have all of the, I think our children and us as adults should be able to fail more often and be comfortable with it, be comfortable with discomfort and being not good at something, and that having that be okay. But also, when we teach our children that autism is a purely positive experience, when they do struggle, I wonder where they will put those feelings. I wonder how they will approach them. I wonder if they will find them shameful and keep them to themselves. I wonder if they feel they will disappoint you as mom or dad or teacher if you have told them, but this is awesome. This is only something that's going to benefit your life. I wonder if they would feel unsafe telling you their struggles with some of their autistic tendencies. Yeah, that's all to say that overall, I think what's always most appropriate for at least what I'm learning as a parent is to be lovingly optimistic and realistic. So rather than one side of the pendulum or the other, that we're in this nice, uncomfortable, varied gray area. That there are really, really wonderful things about being autistic. And there are some really, really difficult things often that come along with being autistic as well. And to ignore either side of those experiences is to be disingenuous and dishonest about the experience. Again, I can see the reasoning why we would want to spin it in this purely positive way to help kids who feel like this is so frustrating. I hate being autistic. I hate these feelings. To convince them that no, you love being autistic. It's not hearing their voice. It's okay to feel that way. It's okay to be frustrated with your own self, how your brain works. It's okay to be frustrated that you see other kids flying through something seemingly effortlessly, and that for you it's this enormous struggle. There has to be space for those feelings and challenges within your relationships. And to make sure that if there is no space for it, then it's kept to self and there's shame attached to it. But as soon as you share it in a space of acceptance, then there's no shame attached to it. It's just lived experience. So the more that we can... Someone just asked me if I do podcasts on Pandora. I sure do. They're there. It's called the Autism Advocate Podcast. Sorry, I'm live on TikTok when I do these things. So hopefully that provides some perspective. Now, again, we don't want to be all doom and gloom. Your kid's never going to do this. This is just a horrible prognosis and diagnosis for your child. This is a doom sentence, which is where it was. We've swung to the other side of, this is my superpower. I'm so glad I'm autistic. It is purely positive. It makes me this, but, I struggle with friends, but there needs to be a space for genuine existing and living. People are so uncomfortable with other people's discomfort. I would love to normalize letting people feel their discomfort and just giving them that space. There are some times, and lately I have been venting to one of my best friends named Lonnie, and I'll say, can I ask you to sit with a really uncomfortable thought with me? Right? So I'm kind of cluing her in that I'm not looking for advice necessarily in this situation. And you know what? I wouldn't need to tell her that. She's a fantastic listener. That's why she's one of like 2 or 3 people I go to, because not only is she a great person, but she's a very intuitive listener. And I know I can come to her with my most sensitive and delicate feelings, that they're safe with her. But sometimes I'll just say, this is the thought I'm having. And that's a hard one, and that's a big one. And she'll just let it be, and she'll say, wow, I'm sorry to hear that. It makes sense. And that must be very heavy for you. And we just sit with it. Once we name it, give it the respect it deserves, it doesn't mean it goes away, but it does mean that there's no longer shame attached to the feeling, because it's no longer hidden. It's no longer thought of as a secret, as shameful, as something that could not be shared. And I hope that when you consider your child's view of being autistic, that you can include the need to be genuine and accepting their experiences as they are, encouraging them that some days it sucks. There are parts of being autistic that can absolutely just are really not fun, awful, horrific, that are a lot of struggle. Let alone how society views autistic individuals, doesn't have support. All of those things are so very valid in the life of an autistic individual. And to help teach your children and nurture them in a way to say, those challenges are very valid, they're welcome here, they're not shameful, you don't need to hide them from me. I'm a safe person to talk to about them. And it doesn't mean that you're doing this whole autism, in quotes, this whole autism thing wrong for you to be not enjoying every part of being autistic. Yeah, I hope that's helpful. Again, it's kind of a movement that I have seen grow over, the 90s, 2000s to now, that parents kind of go through this journey of when their kid first gets diagnosed. It's this sort of panic. I don't know what this journey is going to be like. This changes everything. I had the dream of grandkids and college, and all of that may still very well be possible, but maybe not. And that's always the case before they were diagnosed as autistic as well. But it just puts in your head that some neurotypical lived family experiences may be less probable than before. And so they kind of go through this doom and gloom phase, right? And then they kind of put on their big adult pants and say, like, no, I'm proud of my kid being autistic. But then they kind of full swing the other way in an effort to kind of push away the whole doom and gloom. So then you experience the, no, autism is great. And, autism makes my kid really good at this. And it's just great being a parent of an autistic kid. It's just all sunshine rainbows. It's just amazing. And then once you, bury down, shove down those not pleasant experiences down, eventually you have to swing back more toward the center and say, there's no need for me to be either one of these camps of doom and gloom or purely positive. Like everything in life, it's a mixture of both. That there are a lot of times we really struggle. There are a lot of times as a parent, I am frustrated to the nth degree that I say I quit and I throw my hands up in the air. And then there are, more often than not, experiences where he just has to look at me a certain way. And I'm like, oh, you are my life. You are my love and my light. I call him my sunshine. You're my sunshine boy. And I give him a kiss on the cheek. The depth of the compassion that they have taught me, the freedom that they have given me as far as challenging my societal expectations of, like, why do I feel the need to look nice all the time? Why do I feel the need to have long hair? Why do I feel the need to appear sexy and appealing to other people? And now I couldn't care less, and it is wonderful. And I never would have reached that point of caring for the things that really matter if they had not come into my life and challenged them in such a way that I could not ignore them. Just fantastic things, as well as, not just how they have affected me as a person, but just the relationship that I get to enjoy from them, who they are. That's very enjoyable. Not always enjoyable, right? But very enjoyable. And to be okay with all sides of the experience. It's not a constant complain fest, doom and gloom. It's not a constant sunshine rainbows. It's a rainbow after a storm kind of thing. It's a rose with thorns. It's a just life. It's not a positive or negative. It's just our existence in our life. That there are wonderful, awful, great, really struggle-worthy things. So all of that to say that hopefully helps your own existence as a parent or caregiver, but also passing that, our the way that we think and function is so influential on how our children think and function about who they are. if we can be more accepting of the full, as they say, spectrum of experiences within being autistic, as we can be more accepting of the great and the not great, that we can teach them as well that they can be more accepting of the great and not great, to not attach these positive and negative connotations to it. It's just an existence. Sometimes it's better than others, and some days are better than others. And that doesn't mean that we can't do some perspective building when we've really struggled, or tell ourselves, oh, today was really hard. I know I love my kid. I know I love my life. And today was really hard. You know? Another thing, sorry, as you know, I'm sick, so I have to pause and swallow my spit often to keep my throat lubricated. Another thing that I have really found interesting is there's this therapy, kind of cognitive therapy called dialectable. Dialectable? I always confuse it with diabolical, not diabolical. Dialectal behavioral therapy. Hey there, actually, autistic mama. And it's the idea that two seemingly opposite things can exist in truth at the same time. But there's something in the way our minds are designed where we really struggle to grasp that. Autism is either a totally positive experience or a totally negative experience. For some reason, that's just how our brain wants to put things into boxes and say, okay, we figured this out. This is what it is. It makes it very neat. But what we have found is that generally two very seemingly opposite things can exist at the same time. So consider changing this one word. You know how often we say, look, I really like her. She's so nice, but she drives me crazy. She is just, do you see what I'm saying? Now, instead of saying but, I want you to replace that with the word and. So, I love her. She is so funny. She is so kind. And she drives me crazy. Do you see what I'm saying? So instead of but, and, my kid is wonderful, amazing, bright, adorable. Oh my gosh, his cheeks. And knows how to push my buttons. Is often verbally and physically aggressive. And that's very difficult for me to process and handle. And he loves to snuggle. Now, imagine if I change that to using the word but. My kid is wonderful, amazing, but he does this. But he really challenges me. He's verbally aggressive, da-da-da-da. It seems like the but means it's taking away from the positive experiences, and that's not how it has to be. Both of those things are absolutely true at the same time. I love sweets, but I don't like chocolate bready things. I love sweets, and I don't like chocolate bready things. Do you see what I'm saying? And this can be applied to so many situations. Again, looked up dialectal behavioral therapy. I might not be saying that right, but again, dialectal, sorry. But it means seemingly opposite things can exist at the same time. And when you treat it as such, it's like this game that your mind is almost forced to play because of how our brains work survival-wise of it's great, it's awful, it's great, it's awful, it's great, it's awful. And this panic we feel that we can't quite decide what it is, or one day it's this and another day it's that. It's like it gives you permission to quit playing that game. And it gives you permission to have both exist simultaneously. It's really hard. And it's really great. Isn't that interesting? It's so liberating to know I don't have to choose. And that's not genuine to choose. That's not the lived experience. So I hope as you consider how you approach autism, how you approach the struggles and triumphs that your child may have, that you can consider the and portion, and that you can consider that the struggles don't need to detract from the positives and vice versa, that the positives don't negate the struggles, don't mean, well, but this is positive, so therefore there are no struggles. No, that's not how it goes. There are struggles and positives. The roller coaster goes up and down, right? And the same in our lives, that some days we are handling it like a champ, and I think I'm going to fall apart inside. Both. I'm doing both. And once we can accept that, and the extra anxiety of having our mind play that game to decide, where does autism go? Is it in this group or this group? That doesn't mean the struggle doesn't still exist to be radically accepting of everything that's happening, but the extra anxiety on top of feeling the need to be disingenuously positive about it is gone. You can just experience it and deal with the experience itself instead of all these extra attached emotions. I hope that's helpful for you. In season 2, you're going to be getting interviews. So interviews with other people. I definitely wanted to do a full season where it was just things where I am giving my advice, things that I have learned, things that I find helpful that I wish I had known myself. And as we dive into getting the perspectives of other people, I hope to be adding some very stimulating conversation to what's going on. I hope I can apply to these professionals in their fields, these other parents. I hope I can apply the parenting perspective onto their profession. So for example, if we have a speech language pathologist on, I hope I can help ask questions that are pertinent to the parenting portion of parenting an autistic child rather than purely the speech language portion. And I feel like that is what I hopefully bring to people, and kind of what I hope my niche to be, is that I'm trying to present things from a parenting perspective of what is actually helpful, what takes into consideration, my relationship with my spouse, with my other children, dealing with siblings, dealing with, work. How do we work away from the home? That can often be a struggle. There's just so many little things that need to be kept in mind when presenting this kind of information, and hopefully bring it in a way where we don't have to constantly say, well, can't really apply to me. Dang. Well, that sounds really nice, but there's no way my family in this position right now that we could do that, right? I hope to be able to bring it to you in a way that says, that I could do. That's like 3 minutes of my day. I could do that, or I could add the and in between words instead of the but, right? The but. Wow, he touched the butt. Tell me that movie. Tell me you're a parent of kids without telling me you're a parent of kids. Season 2 will be coming out. I don't know when. Hopefully when my family is not so sick with the flu. Holy guacamole. If you'd like to be part of season 2, please let me know. I would love to talk to any and all of you about your experiences. We are still accepting listener questions. I predict that I will be doing 1 interview a week and 2 listener questions a week, and then a deep dive every now and then. And I'm so grateful. I hope you've enjoyed this season. Please share. I know that I get a lot of messages that say, this has been so helpful for me. I've really appreciated this perspective, and I feel like I can apply things, or things are clarified, or I understand my child better, which is so valuable, and why I continue to share. I know there are more people and parents that would love to hear they're not alone, and who would love to understand their children better and why they behave the way they behave, and how they can be a more effective and compassionate parent. So please share if you're willing, and I will see you next time with season 2.
Want to submit a question? Email us at theautismadvocatepodcast@gmail.com. Follow our social media outlets and check out our shop featuring my Autism Acceptance, Children's Illustrated books, and other fun autism acceptance items. Don't forget, I'm rooting for you, and we'll see you next time.